Every once in a while when I meet somebody new, they'll say, Dakota, where are you from? And I love having the opportunity to say, I grew up in a small town in rural Alabama. Now, whether you have small town roots or dream of one day trading in the city life for a little slower pace, or maybe you just enjoy an occasional weekend getaway where you can actually see the stars at night. Whatever your version of living the small town life looks like, my friends at thesmalltownlife.com, they have you covered with comfortable and unique ball caps and graphic tees that the entire family will love. Be sure to go follow them on Instagram and Facebook and use the hashtag #TheSmallTownLife when you're out there doing the small town living. Hey y'all, and welcome. You're listening to the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm your host, Dakota Dawn Johnson, small town cowgirl with Southern roots, blazing a trail as a Midwest ranch wife, mama, and businesswoman. The mission of Cowgirl Confessions is to share the wonderfully wild and Western life stories of cowgirls from all walks of life. We'll talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to navigating careers, cowboys, kids, and cattle. Legendary cowgirl Dale Evans said it best. Cowgirl is a pioneer spirit, a special brand of American courage. The cowgirl faces life head on, lives by her own lights, and makes no excuses. Cowgirls take stands. They speak up. They defend the things they hold dear. A cowgirl might be a rancher, a barrel racer, a bull rider, or an actress. But she's just as likely to be a checker at the local Winn-Dixie, a full-time mother, a banker, an attorney, or an astronaut. If you're into wet saddle blankets, talks with God, buckets full of laughter, and the life lessons learned in the process, kick off your boots and settle in. I pray these stories encourage, empower, and give you just the leg up you need. Here's to embracing the cowgirl state of mind, no matter how wild and Western life may get along the way. Hi there, friend. Today we are with Olivia Harms, talking all things music, dream chasing, and love finding you when you least expect it. Olivia Harms was born Western music royalty, but the Rhinestone Cowgirl has stepped out on her own to craft a sound that is equal parts Texas, Bakersville, and Nashville country. The daughter of Western Music Hall of Fame member Joni Harms, Olivia grew up on a 150-year-old ranch in Canby, Oregon, and made her first appearance on stage when she was just 2 days old. 27 years later, Olivia is following in her mother's creative footsteps and basing herself out of Granbury, Texas. She's found her niche genre, playing music for Western lifestyle and honky-tonk lovers. She's been recognized for her hard work and perseverance to stay true to herself and play music that is authentic to her. In March of 2022, Olivia was honored to be in Cowgirl Magazine's third class of 30 under 30. And just a few short months later, Olivia was also announced as Singer of the Year at the first annual Women in the West Gala at the Cowgirl Hall of Fame Museum in Fort Worth, Texas. These days, Olivia spends the majority of her time touring Texas and the surrounding areas, returning to the Northwest for tours in the summer and winter. Regardless of where she hangs her hat, she's well in touch with her Western roots, and I can assure you, you will hear the cowgirl state of mind through so much of what she shares on this episode. Now, let's hear from Olivia Harms. Welcome to another episode of the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. Thank you so much for being here today, and I can assure you that this episode is going to leave you feeling better than you found us, and with some pep in your step and even some new music you potentially have not had the chance to hear yet. So welcome to the show, Olivia. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, darling, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to get on and chat with you.
Yes. And this is such a prime example of how social media can be so powerful in a wonderful way, because while we haven't had the chance to connect in person yet, feel like we've been having this conversation of when can we, get together to have you on the podcast, because you have such a really, really cool story. And I'm just excited for you to share more with us about kind of how you got started and the type of music that you sing and play.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've been kind of going back and forth for a while, and I keep hoping that our paths are going to cross in person because we do a lot of the same Western lifestyle events, I see that we're like at a lot of the same things sometimes, or like we're like ships in the night, just
Yes.
passing and never really getting to meet in person. So hopefully that will still happen one day.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I'm hoping for that too. So tell us a little bit about where you're at right now, Olivia, and then how you got to where you're at now in music, because I think that's just really unique. And I love hearing that story from each person.
Absolutely. So, a little bit about Liv. I grew up in Oregon. I'm based in Texas now, but I grew up on a ranch in Oregon, been in my family since 1872. So, we're like the Oregon Yellowstone, I guess, is what some folks have started calling us because we've been there for quite a long time, 150 years, and it's still in the same family. My brother's been taking over the place. So, I grew up chasing cows and riding horses and cutting grass hay and doing all that good stuff. So, for the folks that are not in the Northwest, I'm your friendly reminder that there's still cowboys and cowgirls up in the Northwest, and we're not all crazy tree huggers. So there's still a few good ones up there. Country people are country people wherever you go. I love to say that because no matter where I've traveled in the U.S., it's like, you know what? We may all have different, ag commodities that we grow or that we're around, but country people are country people at the end of the day. And so that's what my background is. And then I was also lucky enough to have a musical mama. So my mom has played music professionally as her career ever since I was really little. So I grew up on the road with her, traveling around, playing music. And Santa Claus brought me my first guitar when I was 6 years old. So I started picking and started writing songs. And then when I, had got a couple finished up, she invited me to come up on stage and start playing songs. And so it's been a wonderful way for me to slowly get into it. I was never pushed into music. A lot of times I'll get that question, did your mom or dad ever push you into music since you came from music? And definitely not. My mom had a crazy career in the music industry. She was in Nashville. She was signed to a couple major record labels, had the big highs and then got dismissed from the label and had some big lows. And so she knows how crazy it is, just like the rodeo world. There's a lot of risk and a lot of crazy adventures, but here I am. And even though she said, you don't have to do it if you want to just pick something else to do, you don't have to do this really hard dream chasing job. But when it's in your blood, it's in your blood and you can't fight it. And so I always knew that's what I wanted to do. And instead of discouraging me, she's been my biggest supporter. And I've been really lucky to have her in my corner.
Oh, that is extremely, extremely special. Share with us a little bit about maybe those first experiences you had to be on stage with your mom, because that's so unique. I mean, not very many people can say that.
Oh, absolutely. I count myself very lucky. Before I started writing music, I always played I Want to Be a Cowboy's Sweetheart. And I'd get up and I'd sing my little song. And then I think one of the first songs I wrote was one I called Coyote Yodel. And I used to yodel a little bit, not so much now. So don't, folks out there, don't be counting on hearing yodeling and Olivia Harms music. But it was so fun, and just like seeing how music can bring happiness to people. That's the biggest thing that made me want to play music, is that you can bring joy to people. Or seeing how folks would come up to my mom and say, oh, Joni, this song that you wrote really helped me through a hard time. I don't know how I would have got through it without the music, just to kind of be like this comforting friend, to be there and let me know that I'm not alone through this process, whether it's loss or grief or a hard time. And just the same when you're going through something good, if you're with your cowgirl buddies and you're going to go out on a Friday or Saturday night, I want to be that song that can help get you amped up and ready to go have a good time at a honky tonk somewhere.
Oh yeah, you got to have like that music, that sound, just I think like pump up music, but it's the same thing. It just gets you in the mood. And I love your sound. I mean, you've got that Texas red dirt vibe, and I love that we're seeing more and hearing more and more of that come into country music on a bigger stage. So, what are your thoughts about that, Olivia? Just in that genre in general?
I love Texas Red Dirt, and my musical journey has kind of been unique. I started in Oregon, and up in Oregon when I was growing up, I knew what music I liked. I knew I loved traditional country music. I mean, George Strait, and I really loved Miranda Lambert and some of her early stuff, and Brooks and Dunn, all that good stuff. But I had no idea that there was this amazing genre called Texas Red Dirt, where they really did just have like this niche market, like, Cody Johnson or Flatline Cavalry, all these very traditional country bands and artists. I had no idea. I've kind of heard of their music and I jumped onto it and became a big fan. But it took me going to Nashville because when you're from Oregon, that's where everybody says, hey, go to Nashville. That's where all the musicians are. So I moved to Nashville after I went to college and I was there for a couple years. And I always felt like I was kind of out of place, very against the grain. I guess I always felt like I was like kind of rubbing folks the wrong way because I always wanted to write cowboy music and rodeo music and kind of honky tonk style stuff. And they were always like, well, no, we got to, stick with the trend. And when I was in Nashville, 2017 to 2020, it was still very contemporary. You started to have Flatland, have a single here or there, or Chris Stapleton, but still your mainstream stuff was very contemporary and not very traditional. And so I started looking into all these bands that were coming out of Texas, and I thought, wow, they sure have a lot of great music coming out of there. And then I started to realize that there really is an amazing music scene here in Texas. And so shortly after being sent home from Nashville to Oregon, because of COVID, everything shut down in 2020. It only took me a couple months being shut down in Oregon to see all my musician friends that moved from Nashville back to Texas. All the musicians in Texas were out touring around and gigging and able to go play music still. So I said, that's where I got to be. So I ended up moving to Texas shortly after in 2020.
Oh my gosh. While none of us wish for COVID, I do think that in so many ways, that year became a very pivotal part of many people's stories. And it sounds like it was for you as well, because who knows how long it would have taken you to leave Nashville and end up in Texas had that not kind of pushed you in that direction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it was kind of the much needed change for a lot of people because we all feel that way. Change is so uncomfortable. I mean, like, there's so many different parts of it, and I have it's very exciting change on my horizon. But I found my cowboy in the least possible place that I would have ever imagined meeting my cowboy. He lives in Northern California, which is a beautiful part of California. Again, lots of ranchers, lots of cowboys and cowgirl culture up there also. But I never imagined that I was going to meet a California cowboy and fall in love and get married to him. And so now that I've found my little home in Texas and bought a house, and that's usually how God has it planned, I've found. Like, he has a sense of humor for sure. Because after I bought my house, I'm like, oh, well, now I met my person. So I guess there's always something new changing, but so many good things come with it. Just like COVID got you out of your comfort zone and kind of gave you that boost to do something that was maybe uncomfortable. I'm so thankful for it. And I know that moving to California is just going to be the same thing. I know there's so many great new opportunities that lie ahead there for me.
Absolutely. Okay. So I feel like you kind of gave us a little bit of a hook, and I want to know the love story. You said you met him in an unlikely place. So tell us, how did you and your future cowboy husband meet?
Yes. So I was playing music at a Texas Red Dirt Festival, and he had gone up to see Zach Bryan. And it was actually the funniest thing was there's this festival that had come about in my hometown of Canby, Oregon, and it was called the Wild Hair Music Festival. And so I was on the roster to play earlier in the day on Saturday. And I guess Zach Bryan was like, that was the closest radius for my fiance Russ to be able to go see Zach Bryan. And so even though it was still like a 7 hour drive for him, that was the closest Zach was going to be. And he's a huge Zach Bryan fan, as many others are, and myself. And I got done playing, and I had the rest of the Saturday to go around and listen to music and enjoy the festival, which is kind of a rare thing for me to be able to have a Saturday afternoon off in the summer as a musician. And so
Mm-hmm.
I had my mom with me and one of my good friends, and we were just wandering around listening to the music. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this nice, tall looking man, and he's in starchies and nice button down press shirt and a straw hat. And I thought, boy, that sure doesn't look like somebody you normally see at some of these music festivals. He's looking pretty sharp. But, as many girls go through the same little thing that I've been through, sometimes you just get to this point in your life where you are saying to yourself, I'm truly going to focus on my career and me. And that's exactly where I was at in my life. I was like, I don't have time for men. I just want to focus on my career and I want to focus on things that make me happy. And so even though I thought he was like a real handsome looking fella over there, I still thought, nope, I don't have time for that. And so we just went on our way. And of course, later on, my mom, she likes to meddle in things, and she said, you gotta go say hi to him. And so after a little bit of time, he ended up coming over and asking if he could buy us a drink. And he won me over with some of his dance moves. He's a great dancer. And even though I wasn't in any mood or any frame of mind looking for my man, he won me over, and I'm very glad he did. I'm glad it all happened. He's a great guy. So,
I love
yeah.
that story. And you're right. It is typically when you quit looking, when you decide, like, no, not now. God has a sense of humor. Like, let me just show you, sister. Let me show you because I
Oh,
got a
it's so
plan.
true. It's so true. And earlier in like early 20s and even mid to late 20s, I just hated it when people would say, "Oh, he finds you when you're least expecting it and when you're not looking." And I always thought, "Oh, that's just BS," I
Uh-huh.
thought that can't be but sure enough, just like you say, God says, "I've got a better plan." So when you finally let your guard down and you give it all to me, then he figures it out for you. So ladies out there, if you're listening, just give it to the man upstairs and focus on yourself. And before you know it, you're going to find your man and it's going to just come out of nowhere.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I couldn't agree with you more. When it comes to navigating careers, cowboys, kids, and cattle, it can feel lonely sometimes, like you're down in the trenches trying to do all the things. But I want to share with you that it doesn't have to feel that way. I joined the Cowgirls Over Coffee membership in May of 2020. And y'all, it has been such a gift. It has allowed me to connect with women with that Western and rural background that simply get it. They understand what I'm working with. We get to share strategies, encouragement, and hold each other accountable as we're pursuing goals in all of these different areas of life. To learn more, visit cowgirlsovercoffee.com or check out episode 45 of the Cowgirl Confessions podcast that features the founder of Cowgirls Over Coffee, Thea Larson. I hope to see you there. Olivia, with all of that being said, let's dive into some other exciting news. I mean, let's talk about your new single.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to have this brand new song out. It came out in February, and it's my first solo write in a really long time. I was in Nashville doing a lot of co-writing for a while, and then COVID sent me back to Oregon, and then, I ended up in Texas. But during all that craziness, I kind of quit writing for a couple years just because I was so busy playing music. And then I had gotten into this rut where I was so used to bouncing ideas off of other people and co-writing that I was kind of stuck when I sat down and tried to write by myself. And so it took me a little while to get back in the groove. Writer's block is a real thing for songwriters too. And it actually was this random time where I was booked at a horse rescue benefit with my band, and we kind of created this little tour around that big date. And we were just 1 or 2 days off from getting down there to play music for them. And they had an accident on the facility and they were going to have to cancel the benefit. And so our hearts went out to them. They were in our prayers, and we were really, bummed for them and bummed for us that we didn't get to play. But I found myself sitting in a hotel room with a free Saturday, which is, if you know musicians, we don't like to have free Saturdays and free Fridays. And so I was sitting there thinking, oh man, and the boys were out doing whatever boys do with the free day. And so I called my mom because that's what girls do when we don't know what else to do. We always call mama. And she said, oh, maybe you should try to write a song. You haven't had a lot of free time lately. You've been traveling and playing. Maybe you should write a song. And I hung up and I said, oh, well, I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. But sure enough, I picked up my guitar and I started picking and playing around with this idea that I had had for a really long time. I've always thought that This Ain't My First Rodeo is a great song title. We say it all the time at rodeos and Western events. And so I started playing with it, and I kind of took a turn on it, just saying, how being a musician and being in the Western world, rodeo world, we don't mean to have to be one place for one night and then move on and leave people behind without any sort of warning. It's just part of the job. You got to get down the road to the next one. And so I found myself writing this kind of true story about how, I don't mean to be leaving, or I don't mean to lead you on, but this ain't my first rodeo. So you're better off to just stick in your small town, and I'll head on down the road to the next one. And probably about an hour and a half later, I had me a brand new song and started playing it live. And I got really, really great reception from a lot of people. So we went in the studio in November and recorded it. It's out now, and it's been doing really well for me. I think right now it's at number 38 on the Texas Top 100 chart, and it's only been out for a month. So that's super exciting. And I'm just glad to see so many people loving it and playing it.
Oh, it is so exciting. I love the title. And I have to know, so was there like this moment where you heard it for the first time on the radio? Like, do you remember where you were at? Like, which radio station played it?
I guess I haven't heard it on the radio station yet, like when I'm just cruising down the road. But
Right.
what was really cool is when I started getting videos or like tagged and things on Instagram,
Hmm.
and people would be like, "Oh my gosh, we love this new song, from Olivia Harms that just came on our local radio station." And so I think the first one I got was down in Corpus Christi. There was someone who tagged me and said, "Love the new single," and it's really neat to see them slowly coming in. And then when you look at the video, it's always just kind of surreal to say, huh, wow, I can't believe that my song is on the radio station playing somewhere and people are listening to it, whether they know me or they don't know me, and hopefully saying, well, this is a pretty decent song. We might have to save that one on Spotify and listen later.
Absolutely. And, you have such a warmth and an energy about you. And no wonder, with all this experience and your Western background as well, you were part of the very first, the inaugural group of the 30 under 30.
Yeah,
And so I want for you to share with us more about that experience, if you will, Olivia, because you're actually the first, cowgirl we've had on the podcast that was part of that very first group. So if you could share with the listeners, number one, what it is, because everybody may not be familiar with that. It is still relatively new, I feel like. And then how you continue to be involved.
absolutely. I can't say enough great things about Cowgirl Magazine's 30 Under 30. It's such an incredible group of women and it's growing. I was just at their fifth gala on Friday. And so now there's 150 of us that are alumna of Cowgirl 30 Under 30. And Ken Amrasano, who owns Cowgirl Magazine, a couple years ago, thought of this wonderful idea to do like a homage to, we have like Forbes 30 Under 30, but he wanted to highlight women in the Western industry that are young entrepreneurs or young business women making a difference and that are going to be our future CEOs. It's really cool to see all the women that are in this sisterhood. You look around and you're like, this one's going to be running Justin Boots, and we have another one that's going to be the president of Hatco one day. I mean, it's just so cool to see women from the Cowboy channel or the Cowgirl channel, photographers that are in our industry, so many influencers. I mean, it's like all across the globe of spans of however you can think of a cowgirl. And there's one of them, whether it's beef production, the wettest, there's so many. And so it's been really cool to see all these women highlighted for their different talents in the Western industry. And so it's been really amazing. I was very proud to be a part of that group. Last year, I wrote a song for, I guess it was the fourth class last year, and I was honored to Ken asked me if I would write this song called Cowgirl Can. And so I went ahead, and it was really nerve-wracking for me because I was like, oh man, all these women that are so incredible and I have to write a song for them. And so that was really fun. And then this year I got to be a co-host at the gala. So it's incredible. I can't say enough good things about these women. And if you're not familiar with it, go check it out. Cowgirl 30 Under 30. I think they'll be doing their sixth class next year, and applications usually open in October. So go check it out. And it's an amazing, amazing thing.
I just think it's absolutely incredible when someone takes an idea like that and they put their own personal spin on it for our Western industry. Because I was reading an article the other day, actually, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it was just talking about how when someone from a Western or ag background goes to interview for a job, how people are realizing like those are some of the best candidates. Like we immediately rise to the top because there's just something different. And I think you and I both could agree that it's a set of values, it's knowing how to work hard, being committed to getting the job done, and really having a cowgirl or a cowboy state of mind. Like that's how most of us are wired when you come from this type of background. And I just, any opportunity where it sheds light on that in a positive way and really in a business minded entrepreneurial way, I think it's just going to continue to, help other people realize like this is a unique group of people and there's room at the table, and invite more people into this lifestyle, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I am all about building a longer table and not a taller fence. There's room for everybody, and there's so much growth still ahead. And so I couldn't agree with you more. I really do think anyone that comes from the Western background, they have this grit and grace and work ethic that is somehow just like ingrained in us through, how we grew up and the surroundings and everything that we've been a part of.
Absolutely. So, Olivia, if we're wanting to be able to catch you live in person, What does your schedule look like, now through the summer, or fill us in on how we could catch up with you?
You bet. Yeah, I'm always traveling and playing a lot of music. For the most of the spring, I'm going to be here in Texas playing music. So the easiest way to find out where I'm going to be is social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those good things, or oliviaharms.com. I always have my tour dates posted on there. And then over the summer, the band and I call my band the Roadrunners because that's what we do. We just run down the road all the time. But we're headed up to Montana, Wyoming, maybe some Colorado, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, California. We'll be all over the Western states, sticking away from the Texas heat and bringing some of our traditional country music to rodeos and fairs and festivals up north.
Cool, cool. Well, Olivia, with that, I mean, you said it perfectly, the road runners, and that's what it is. You're going up and down the road, going to the next thing. And so what advice would you have, for someone listening that thinks this is the career path they want to take? Any advice on some things to just kind of be aware of? You were fortunate enough to have your mom and get to see a lot of this firsthand, but everybody doesn't have that. So I guess any advice over really how to decide if this is for you or not?
Absolutely. I think it comes back to the Western culture and how we have that work ethic ingrained into us. And so even if you don't come from that Western background, doesn't mean you can't be a musician or a traditional country artist at all. I'll just say that you have to find that work ethic somewhere. I wish that there was a magic sauce that I could give everybody and some secret weapon of how you can get success and slowly start growing your musical career. But the best thing I can tell you is to get out there and to chase it and to chase it hard, and don't get offended or don't get knocked down when somebody tells you no. Just get back up and keep chasing. Dreams aren't going to chase you back. First, the opportunities don't always start calling you. So if you want it, you have to be willing to kind of put in all that grunt work and call the fairs and the festivals, or start writing music and playing for small crowds and building fans one at a time. I was there. Sometimes I still am there, because you just, every small win, every small fan is a win. So if you're going through that, or if you're wanting to start it, work hard, give yourself credit for the small victories, give yourself a pat on the back for every small accomplishment, because each of those steps, even though they feel small in the moment, you're going to get there as long as you keep taking the steps. If you give yourself a hard time and you don't have courage to keep going, just remind yourself of all of those amazing things that are waiting for you at the top of that mountain, because you'll get there if you keep going.
Yes, ma'am. Olivia, what do you think a 6-year-old version of you with your brand new guitar in hand would say about where you're at today?
I think she'd be proud. I think she would say, wow, I never imagined we'd be able to be doing all these things and going all these places and meeting so many incredible people. So I think she'd be pretty proud, that little 6-year-old playing guitar from Santa Claus.
No doubt. No doubt she would. Well, Olivia, I have so enjoyed getting to catch up with you today. And, we wrap up every episode asking our guests, what does the cowgirl state of mind mean to you? I love just hearing those unique answers from each and every cowgirl on the show. And so I'd love to hear that answer in your own words.
Cowgirl state of mind to me is grit and grace. They have the work ethic to work hard, but they have the grace for so many different kinds of people. I think cowgirls are one of the most accepting breeds of people. Doesn't matter what your background is, where you come from, whether you wear a hat or whether you wear heels, it doesn't matter. We are inclusive to everybody. We always try to see the good in people, and we always have the courage to keep going and to keep chasing our dreams.
Thank you so much. And how can everybody keep up with you?
Absolutely. Social media, Olivia Harms Official, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those platforms. And if you ever want to listen to my music while you're rolling down the road, Spotify, Apple Music, all those things, just look up Olivia Harms.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. And we're praying for you, cheering you on as you and the Roadrunners head to your next event. And Olivia, I think what you're doing is awesome. Just keep on keeping on, girl.
Thanks, Dakota. I've enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Thank you for spending your time with me on the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm so glad y'all stopped by. If you could take a moment to share this episode and tag us on social media, I'd be happier than a cowgirl in a sea of buy one, get one vintage turquoise. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode. New episodes will be released bi-monthly. Please leave us a review if you feel so led by going to iTunes. Your feedback will really help us breed the idea of grabbing life by the horns with a cowgirl state of mind into women across the globe. Some that may have never even had the privilege to throw their leg over a horse, but could most certainly use the cowgirl state of mind while navigating life. Thanks again, y'all. Until next time, keep pursuing your dreams with that all go and no woe mentality. Remember, you're writing a story that's worth saddling up for, sister.